Hey, my name is Teresa Matsura, author of the Book of Japanese Folklore and podcaster here at Uncanny Japan. Here, I tell you about all the more obscure nooks and crannies of Japanese culture. In today's episode, I'll be taking you on a journey to visit the Golden Pavilion. Kinkaku-ji is arguably one of the most well-known temples in Kyoto, or all of Japan really. So what do you know about it? When did you first hear about it? Did you know that some people swear that you can take some photos of some pretty weird ghosts if you visit? Me neither. So I sat down and I made a list of all the things I did know about this iconic Zen temple, and I realized despite having visited many times over the years, I really didn't know much at all. Let's start with the fact that its real name isn't even Kinkaku-ji. That's more of a nickname. But I'll back up a minute. Before the Golden Pavilion was a temple at all, it was a villa owned by a statesman, and it was called Kitayamadai. In 1397, the shogun, Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, acquired it and made it into this beautiful complex. It still wasn't legitimately a temple yet. I mean, he wanted it to happen, but before it could, poor old Yoshimitsu passed away. His son, though, followed through with his father's dream and turned it into a Rinzai Zen temple. The official name, however, wasn't and isn't Kinkaku-ji, the Golden Pavilion. Here's some trivia to impress your friends with. In Japan, people are given posthumous names after they die. Special Buddha names, different from the one you used when you were alive. They're called kaimyo, or precept name. And there are several reasons for giving and getting one of these names after death. One of those reasons is that it's kind of like when you die and you show up, hopefully, in Buddha's paradise, you'll be recognized as a disciple and welcomed. A little snarky and funny side note, they are given by Buddhist monks and they cost quite a bit. The more you pay, the better name you get. Some people rightly think that that's not fair. The richer you are, the better position you get in heaven. However, even though this is a centuries-old tradition, I see things changing a little. I had an older friend who was very well read, and he loved to read old Japanese and obscure kanji. His hobby, he called it, was that he would actually come up with these beautiful kaimyo for friends and family who needed one to use, and he gave them away totally free. Anyway, Yoshimitsu was given the name Rokuon for his posthumous name. It means deer park. Really, deer park. It comes from the place the Buddha gave his first sermon after he attained enlightenment, Deer Park. So the temple everyone calls Kinkaku-ji is really named Rokuon-ji, Deer Park Temple. So if you're ever on Jeopardy! Another bit of trivia is that it used to be taller. At one point, it was a 5-tiered pagoda, but in 1416, it was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. It started to be rebuilt, and bang, it was once again struck by lightning and burned down again. I'm not sure, but I think this was when it was rebuilt to be only 3 stories tall. Those lightning strikes aside, when the Onin War took place in 1467 to 1477, the army came through Kyoto and burned down just about everything. This time, all the other buildings around Kinkaku-ji got torched, but the Golden Pavilion itself survived. The Golden Pavilion you see today is not so big, and it consists of only 3 floors, each one in an entirely different architectural style. The first, which also isn't covered in gold at all, is called Hosui-in, or the Chamber of Dharma Waters, Dharma being the Buddha's teachings. Its style is from the Heian era, so the 11th century, and it's called the Shinden style. You can't go inside, but if you could, you'd find it's all one big room, but with a little raised area where the restored statue of Ashikaga Yoshimitsu and the Shaka Nyorai Buddha sit side by side. The ceiling is made of mirrors. The second floor goes by the fancy name of Cho-on-do, or Tower of Sound Waves. It's built in the style of samurai families called bukke. It has black lacquer walls and ceiling with celestial deities painted flying about. The outside is covered in gold leaf, though. And the third floor is built in Chinese style, and both inside and outside are covered with gold leaf. Another thing I didn't know is that it's used as a shariden, meaning it houses some of the Buddha's ashes. Side note, the rice part of your sushi, the little block that the fish or egg or whatever rests on, is called a shari in Japanese. And that comes from shariden because if you look at Buddha's ashes, they're actually tiny bits of bone, and they look like grains of rice. So let's fast forward to the Golden Pavilion in the 20th century, specifically July 2nd, 1950. On this night at 3 a.m., all the beauty was completely destroyed once again. This time by a novice monk associated with the temple who decided to burn it down. The entire building was consumed, as were priceless Buddhist relics and artwork housed inside, although a few were restored, it seems. This young monk, who, let's say, lived a complicated life, was found nearby. He had attempted to take his own life by taking barbiturates and cutting his stomach, harakiri. Note that the ritualistic form of disembowelment is called seppuku. Harakiri is a grosser form of the act. It's said that harakiri is the actual act, while seppuku would be the ritual surrounding it. Also, seppuku involves a kaishakunin, a kind of assistant, usually the samurai's second or retainer, who stands with a sword ready to deliver a final decapitating blow, ending his master's suffering. All right, let's go back to the young monk. He didn't die, but he was arrested. He was then sentenced to 7 years in prison. He gave his reason for destroying the Golden Pavilion as a desire to shock society and revenge against the world. The author Yukio Mishima wrote a novel called The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, which was a fictionalized version of the arson attack. He even visited the young man in prison to interview him. The young man ended up getting tuberculosis and died at the age of 26. In a very ironic twist of fate, it's a long story, but Mishima himself became extremely nationalistic, started his own private militia, and kind of attempted a coup with 4 of his followers, and he ended up committing seppuku for real. Now, what to do about that iconic temple? One lucky thing is that from 1904 to 1906, the whole temple was painstakingly dismantled and rebuilt, carefully repairing all the parts that needed to be repaired. During this endeavor, meticulous drawings were made about how it was built and what went where and measurements and everything like that. After the 1950s fire, those schematics were used to faithfully restore that beloved Kinkaku-ji to its original self. It took over a period of 5 years. And another, we'll call it lucky thing, is that before it was set on fire that night in July, there was only gold leaf on the 3rd floor, with none remaining on the 2nd. They decided that with the new version, they would use thicker gold leaf and cover both the 2nd and 3rd floor, making it more gorgeous than before. To this day, the view of it reflected in the pond outside is very famous. If you've ever seen a photo of the Golden Pavilion, or been there and seen it in real life, you'll notice there's a golden bird on top. This is, as I'm sure you guessed, a phoenix, called a ho in Japanese. It symbolizes auspiciousness and is also associated with the imperial family. Some historians suggest that the fact that it was placed on top by the ambitious Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, a mere shogun, meant that he might have harbored ambitions of elevating his lineage to imperial status, and this was a symbol of that connection. True or not, we do know that phoenixes are symbols of resurrection, particularly after getting burned. This exact mythical bird, though, actually didn't get burned. It survived the 1950 arson attack because it had been taken down for repairs at the time. There used to be a rumor that the top floor ceiling was made from a single piece of camphor wood, which would be an enormous tree. Sad. But it seems like it's not true. But it doesn't stop people from talking about it and flocking to visit, even though you actually can't go inside and check it out for yourself. Another thing I find interesting about Kinkaku-ji is that in Japan, usually every old building, temple, shrine, crossroad, bridge, tunnel, phone booth, or public toilet has some sort of ghost story connected to it. But I couldn't find anything about any bad or vengeful ghosts associated with the beautiful golden pavilion. That doesn't mean I didn't find any ghost stories. I did find that there are some urban legends that say you can capture ghostly images if you take a photo of the temple. But they aren't the wicked kind. They all seem to be bald-headed monks wearing fundoshi, loincloths, with their hands in prayer, or engaged in some other acts of austerity. I'm not sure Kinkaku-ji was ever a place for such practices, but teenagers have wonderful imaginations, and Kinkaku-ji is one of the most visited temples for school trips from all over Japan. So quite a few high schoolers have reported capturing ethereal images of these aesthetic monks' spirits. Some are swimming in the pond, others are sitting zazen on the roof, or even lying on the roof, sunbathing, which kind of makes you want to go and just take photos. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please consider becoming a patron if you'd like. And I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.